Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking what's literally one of the most fascinating administrative and cultural balancing acts on the planet. I mean, just imagine trying to coordinate a country made up of 28 distinct states and 8 union territories. How do you govern, how do you communicate, and how do you ensure everyone is heard when the population is just so incredibly diverse? To put that scale into perspective, historically, census data has identified over 19,500 languages or dialects spoken as mother tongues across the country. That is absolutely wild. Managing that level of diversity, it makes this administrative puzzle one of the most complex in human history. So we're going to explore this great Indian language puzzle. It's a brilliant system, and I promise you, the way it's all mapped out is going to completely change how you look at national identity. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the national language myth. To really understand how India communicates today, we actually have to start by tackling a massive misconception. It's one that causes endless debates, both inside and outside the country. So let me ask you, what is the national language of India? Think about your answer for just a second. If you asked people around the world, or honestly even within the country itself, what do you think they'd say? A lot of folks might instantly guess Hindi, right? Others may be thinking about the legacy of the British Empire or modern global business. Well, they might guess English. But here's the big twist. None. There isn't one. India does not have a national language. I know, right? Despite decades of intense debates and assumptions, the Constitution of India deliberately chose not to give the official status of national language to any single language. You see, back during the incredibly tense Constitute and Assembly debates in the late 1940s, the framers of the Constitution realized something absolutely crucial. Declaring a single national language would immediately marginalize vast segments of the population. They knew that elevating just one language would feel like an outright erasure of the rich histories of everyone else, especially for folks in the southern and eastern regions of the subcontinent.
And this famous quote brilliantly illustrates exactly why. Indian language changes every few kilometers, just like the water. It is true in every sense. India is this vibrant, democratic nation just bursting with varied ethnic cultures and traditions. When you have a country where the local tongue shifts fundamentally just by driving down the highway to the next town, crowning one single language as the representative of everyone's cultural identity becomes an impossible task. In India, language isn't just about how you say hello. It's deeply tied to local culture, regional history, ancient literature, and, even the local food. Every single dialect holds the soul of its speakers.
Moving right along to Section 2, national versus official languages. So the crucial point is, if there's no national language, how does anything actually get done? How do the courts work? How do the states even talk to the center? Well, this brings us to a vital legal distinction. You see, a national language is purely symbolic. It represents the cultural identity, the soul, and the heritage of the entire nation. An official language, on the other hand, well, that's purely functional. It's the language chosen for practical communication by the central administration. In essence, official languages act as the administrative glue, holding the government together, while national languages act as the cultural soul. So India chose to trade the cultural symbolism of a single national language for the practical, day-to-day utility of official languages.
That brings us to Section 3, the 40% dilemma.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is understanding why Hindi, which is the most widely spoken language in the country, wasn't just made the national language anyway. Well, it all comes down to math, historical tension, and democracy. At the time they were framing these rules, Hindi was spoken by only about 40% of the Indian population. Think about that for a second. That leaves a massive 60% majority who do not speak it as their primary language. Forcing Hindi as a national language would mean forcing the 60% majority to learn it just to participate fully in their own country's national identity. Historically, any attempt to push Hindi as the sole national language risked alienating the South and the East, sparking some severe anti-Hindi agitations. In a vibrant democracy, turning a democratic choice into a linguistic imposition simply wasn't going to fly. Which leads us to Section 4, India's 2 official languages. So the national government had to find a practical workaround, right? They needed to ensure the administration could function across those 28 states and 8 union territories without stepping on cultural toes. And the solution is actually written right into the Constitution. Under Article 343, Hindi was designated as an official language. But, and this is key, its use by the central government is specifically targeted for communication with the states located within the Hindi Belt. The Hindi Belt refers to this massive geographic and cultural region, mostly in northern and central India, encompassing hundreds of millions of people. This gave the central administration a primary, highly effective tool for a huge chunk of the country. But to bridge the gap with the rest of the country, that's 60% we just talked about, the Constitution stipulated a second language, English.
English serves as the associate official language. It acts as the vital connecting language used primarily when the central government communicates with the non-Hindi speaking states. Now, here's a fun fact. English was actually originally supposed to be phased out after 15 years of independence. Literally, that was the plan. However, non-Hindi speaking states fiercely advocated to keep it as a neutral bridging language, and they succeeded. Today, together, Hindi and English keep the gears of the national government turning smoothly. All right, let's look at Section 5, the 22 scheduled languages.
Okay, let's dive into this because this is where the system gets truly empowering for the everyday citizen. India didn't stop at just 2 languages for administrative ease. No way. They went much further to formally recognize and protect the immense regional linguistic diversity we've been discussing. The Indian Constitution features something called the 8th Schedule. Basically, if a language makes it onto this constitutional list, it gets major institutional backing. These scheduled languages are entitled to representation on the Official Language Commission. But even more importantly, if you're a candidate taking a highly competitive exam for national government service, you can opt to take your exam in any of these scheduled languages. You aren't forced to take it in just Hindi or English. This completely levels the playing field for civil service jobs, ensuring fair representation across diverse ethnicities in the highest levels of government. And how many languages have actually achieved this incredible scheduled status? Exactly 22. Reaching this number wasn't just some one-time event either. It's been an ongoing process of recognition over decades, as different groups legally demanded a voice and official acknowledgement of their cultural significance. Looking at the first part of our schedule here, spanning Assamese to Kannada, the contrast in scale is just fascinating. On one hand, you have Hindi, recognized across a massive swath of the country, from Delhi and Haryana down to Bihar and Madhya Pradesh. But right up there alongside it on the 8th schedule is Bodo, recognized specifically in the state of Assam. And remember, these are not just minor dialects. We are talking about full-fledged languages with completely distinct alphabets, their own writing scripts, and deep, deep literary traditions. Actually, a lot of these are older than the English language itself. So whether a language spans over a dozen states or is deeply tied to just one, the Constitution gives them totally equal footing in those crucial national exams.
Let's move to the next set and see how this builds. Looking at the languages from Kashmiri down to Odia, we can spot some really fascinating regional overlaps. Take Konkani, for example. It isn't just confined to one state. It's the language of the beautiful Konkan coast, meaning it's officially recognized across Goa, Maharashtra, Kerala, and even the Union territories of Dadra and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu. You see, administrative borders rarely perfectly contain human languages. People migrate, cultures blend, and regional identities spill right over the lines drawn on a map. So the 8th schedule dynamically adapts to human geography, rather than forcing people to adapt to rigid state borders.
And finally, looking at our last 7 scheduled languages, from Punjabi to Urdu, this really highlights just how intertwined these linguistic identities truly are. Urdu, for example, has a vast reach, officially recognized across Jammu and Kashmir, Telangana, Delhi, Bihar, UP, and West Bengal. Meanwhile, look at Santali. It's spoken by the Santal people, an indigenous community whose presence spans across Jharkhand, Assam, Bihar, Odisha, and Tripura. By recognizing tribal languages like Santali or Bodo, the government uses the 8th schedule as a powerful tool for social inclusion. It acknowledges an ethnic identity that transcends traditional state lines, actively protecting ancient indigenous heritage against modern cultural assimilation.
So we've seen how India navigated a really complex 40-60 language split, and they did it not by forcing compliance, but by utilizing 2 functional official languages while elevating 22 regional languages to constitutional status. So here's a final thought to leave you with. If language fundamentally shapes our identity, how does India's choice to schedule 22 languages instead of forcing one national language strengthen its democracy? As that famous quote told us earlier, language changes every few kilometers just like the water. This whole framework is a powerful reminder that sometimes the absolute best way to unite a diverse people isn't by making them all speak the same words, but by ensuring every single voice has a legal protected right to be heard. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking great questions, and I'll catch you in the next one.